you, that rose out of hell like smoke in the form of 1,000 stallions, that rose out of hell like smoke in the form of 1,000 stallions. A dead battalion, eyes blood red with a lust for the violence of racial injustice.
That's the secret.
I come to bury Joe and burn a candle for Augustus. It's maybe not a song. Maybe you didn't get what I meant. This is not a political event. It's the winter of our discontent. Half of us will not make rent. I might burn my masters just to keep warm. Big white lies. No silver lining under smoke gray skies. And all of the streets ran red, but the blood sure kept our feet warm. So vote for the wolf in sheep form. Defund police before we're all deformed. Take our free speech, we'll speak in the tongues of C4. Our lungs need more to send us packing than tear gas thrown from the hands of fascists who killed their cams and take off their badges, all while Biden and Kamala fund our assassins and offer us nothing but platitudes. They'll tell us go out and vote and then clean up your attitudes. Will Joe fuck you to death and the donors you fed us to? Go out and vote and then clean up your attitudes.
A Democratic president wants 100,000 cops. A Democratic president wants 100,000 cops.
People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in the rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
Maybe that's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer. Liberation.
INN News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
We're here. We did it. It's Wednesday. Sorry, everyone had to find a new stream. I apologize. YouTube also seems to be down for everyone. So that's nice. Restream decided to have a headache, so had to fix that. You know, I'm currently holding the internet wire between my toes so that we have a connection. If I let go of it, we lose the connection. So hopefully things hold. What up, dude? Collin Radix-Carter, Reef Breland, INN News. You see the sign up there. You'll know what it is. You know. Collin, how you doing? How's DC holding up? You know?
Meh.
Meh. The king of DC has spoken. It is meh. that is how it works.
It's just
Yep. It is meh. Everything is meh. We brought some meh stories today. You know, we did the thing another week. Not being distracted by the standard psyops everyone else seems to be. What'd you bring?
So this is more. First story is kind of a is kind of a continuation of. I believe you talked about this last week.
Yeah.
In regards to a firm that is purposely trying to reach out to Christian churches to spread a more pro-Israel message.
Faith through BB? Is that what it is?
These are the two guys that this firm is looking to hire. So kind of, I will admit, it's kind of baitery in a sense, but not really, but we know Steph Curry and Chris Pratt, two very prominent Christians in Hollywood / sports. These are the two guys that this firm is looking to possibly, engage with, hire to spread their Hasbara. So we'll get into that first. And honestly, the big story this week has been this alleged, peace deal between Hamas and Israel. So obviously we've seen on mainstream media just a lot about, I think more so about the remaining 20, at least the ones who are alive, the remaining 20 hostages that were kept on the Hamas side that were released. Not much on the Palestinian side, so we tried to bring some nuance here. So we're going to talk about a story where some Palestinians are being denied being able to connect with their families once they were released. So, so we're going to get into that a little later, and just more so why. Well, we know even now, like, this ceasefire is not, because Israel has already broken it as we are live right now. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. And then what did you bring?
Well, funny enough, last night when we were preparing, Collin gets in, hadn't looked at anything yet, and looked at this thumbnail and was like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Well, I had fun with the thumbnail. Unicorns and cupcakes and the joy of being Antifa. So we're gonna talk about this guy. It is not Michael Rappaport in a mask. It is another individual. We'll get to it later. But this is a story from Keith McHenry, co-founder of Food Not Bombs. And it sounds like they have Food Not Bombs in the sniper scope. So, there's some narrative management happening there. And everyone seems to be talking about this today. We're going to talk about how the War's Peace Prize got awarded to this lady and her background and such. Been paying attention to what's been happening in Venezuela. We'll give you some updates on that. But otherwise, that's what I brought. So
Nice.
Yee. Well, I guess we get started. Make sure to send the link to your friends so they get in here. Links got screwed up. Right. So share the stream with people, as we always ask anyway.
Right. So, as we always say, please help us financially. All the money you give us helps to pay for the programming that we need in order to produce this show and the other shows on the network. We are good for the year, fortunately. So we're has Angel's raised all his money, correct?
I think so, yeah.
I would assume.
Pretty sure.
Okay, well, either way, could probably help for next year to pay our upcoming bills for 2026.
I mean, if you haven't given to the Aspen stuff or the Shanda stuff, go do that too. Right. Oz can probably leave some links for the Shanda stuff. I think he's in the chat. If you got that convenient.
But like we say, especially now, because we're heading into the holiday, is practically here. So obviously people are stretched, especially if you work in the federal government. You got a partial paycheck this past week. So shout out to the federal workers who are now working without pay. Total bullshit. So obviously you are not entitled to give at all. But if you have the means to, and only after you're taking care of yourselves, your families, and your communities, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can type in the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of the screen. Or if you're in YouTube right now live and you're in chat, you can type in !donate, all one word, as Reef just graciously put in.
Yep.
And the Ko-fi link will appear, and you can click on it, and you can donate any amount that you can. Anything as low as $1 will help us, and we are very appreciative. And as we always say, the algorithm hates us because we do not talk about trending stuff. So like, share, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you leave a comment. It allegedly helps us in the algorithm. And I forgot to mention this. Those of you who give any amount, any point, will end up in our Wall of Fame. If you give quite a bit, your name is highlighted and your name will be featured in the closing credits of our show as our thank you for being our VIPs to the show and the network. And if you want to don't want to give through Ko-fi, you can give through Cash App, PayPal, Substack, as Reef is showing you here, and the links to all those financial all our financial givings or whatever is in the description as always. So thank you guys so much. We love you. And yeah, I have to go to bed. So
Yep.
shall we get started?
Yes, sir.
So as I said earlier, this is kind of a continuation from your segment last week where you talk about what you talked about. You didn't talk about this firm in particular, correct? Or
I think
you
touched
kind
on
of
it.
hinted at it.
Yeah, the
touched on
camp
it.
story had a bit of it, I think.
Right.
So-
And funny enough, or not funny enough, I tried to do some research into this firm that is allegedly trying to hire prominent Christian figures in media, such as these two guys right here, Chris Pratt and Steph Curry, to spread their Hasbara towards Israel. Couldn't find a damn thing about this firm at all. So probably not by coincidence. That being said, I am going to read. I'm actually going to read 2 articles that I kind of Frankensteined together. Just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up of, especially if you're a churchgoer, this might be something you might want to be aware of, especially if you are supporting the Palestinian cause, that your church may essentially be targeted / marketed towards promoting pro-Israel propaganda. So it seems like it's only happening only on the western side of the country.
Yeah.
But that's not to say it can happen on the east or anywhere else in the country either. So this article, actually, let me pull the slides.
Yeah.
This article is written by Nick Cleveland-Stout for Responsible Statecraft. Kind of a new guy that we're kind of learning about, but he's been talking about this a lot based on what I've seen on his Twitter. So that's kind of his hyper focus right now. But he writes, Israel wants to hire Chris Pratt and Steph Curry. The Jewish state is seeking to target Christian evangelical churches for support, using celebrities in an anti-Palestinian message in a new $3.2 million effort. So, Nick, come on. Why isn't this working?
It was. Go back one. Come on. I think that's the right one, right?
Yeah, my screen, my internet is
Having fun.
silly. Yeah. Hold on one sec. I got it.
There you go.
All right. A newly created firm called Show Faith by Works is carrying out a $3.2 million outreach and digital targeting campaign to Christian churches in the Western United States on behalf of the Israeli government. The firm's goal, as described in its filing under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, is to increase positive associations with the nation of Israel while linking the Palestinian population with extremist factors. Show Faith by Works will carry out the campaign through December for its work, which includes targeting churchgoers with pro-Israel ads geofencing major churches, hiring celebrity spokespeople, and visiting churches and colleges with a mobile trailer called the October 7th Experience on behalf of the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In one slide of the proposed plan, the firm listed a number of potential Christian celebrity spokespeople for Israel, including actors Jon Voight and Chris Pratt, former NFL player Tim Tebow, and NBA player Steph Curry, and a number of megachurch pastors. According to the document, the athletes and celebrities will be expected to deliver pro-Israel messaging. In response to a question whether Jon Voight has been offered to work as a spokesperson for Israel, Siri Garber, a public relations executive who represents the actor, explained in an email that she was unaware of any offer. Not that I know of, but it's about time they start trying to combat the pro-Pali propaganda. Propaganda machine. They should choose some who are appealing to the Gen Alpha and millennials. Ooh. Come on.
Yeah, your internet's just got to catch up.
Yeah. Give them the Gen Alphas and millennials, etc. There we go. No, you can zoom out. As that is where all misinformation lies, wrote Garber in an email. In response to a follow-up question about whether Voight would consider such a request, Garber responded, "No idea."
I mean, you could have said no.
Chad Stitchinger, I guess that's how you say his name, who is leading the contract for Show Faith by Works, told RS in an email that as of now, none of the celebrities mentioned in the slide deck had been contacted. This was an early planning document with a variety of options that were discussed, but nothing set in stone, he said. We're very proud of the way the project has grown since those early planning sessions, and we're eager to show it to the world once we get more details and materials in place, he added. Stitchinger's firm also proposed a 10/7 experience mobile trailer that will tour Christian colleges, churches, and events highlighting the atrocities of October 7, 2023. The trailer will feature a wall-length mounted TV with updated information, pro-Israel media, and footage of the IDF explaining the difficulty of fighting bad guys in hostile territory with civilians.
And keep in mind, last week, they also mentioned VR experience, like virtual reality October 7th experience. So that can only go well, right? You know?
Right. So like video gamingizing.
Yeah. You got to save Gal Gadot from the paragliders. That's what I'm thinking. You know, in my video game brain, you know? So
Show Faith by Works goal is to reach some 3.8 million churchgoers. Of those, the firm estimates getting around 5 to 10% to agree to our program or attend our events or sign a pledge card. So as I said, I'm going to Frankenstein this. So I'm going to insert this article from Rift, where they continue. The firm's stated mission is to combat low American evangelical Christian approval of the nation of Israel, to use biblical arguments to highlight the importance of Israel and the Jewish people to Christians, to educate Christians on the historical importance of Israel and its significance in the region. The document also states it would geofence the actual boundaries of every major church in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado, and all Christian colleges during worship time, track attendees, and continue to target with ads. The document plans to use mobile setups, deploy and pay social media influencers, create pastoral resource packages, and even use Christmas messaging to include Israel protects Christians like no other nation in the Middle East, and Israel is the birthplace of Jesus. So I decided to have a little fun with this. Like in response to Israel protects Christians like no other nation in the Middle East. So just for shits and giggles. Oh, before that.
Jesus is the bread.
So I guess this is the slide from their planning.
Right.
So so they state December for the Christian church is entirely about Christmas. Suggested targeting
Israel
messaging
is the
changes for
birthplace.
digital
Okay.
mega churches in December. And so I read that Israel protects Christians like no other nation.
Yeah.
Israel is the birthplace of Jesus. Come see Bethlehem for yourself. So had a little fun. So I
Yep.
decided to check on different articles related to the bombings that
Right.
Israel has done at
Yeah.
Christian churches. And these were all within the last 2 years.
Got
So
the AP, you got
it's-
fucking Middle East stuff, like even the Vatican is like churches condemn airstrike on Orthodox. Yeah, of course. Like Independent, how a sniper's bullet utterly shattered the last vestiges of a sanctuary in Gaza's only Catholic church. Gaza father grieves for children killed in Israel airstrike. 8 dead in airstrike that hit church in Lebanon. Yeah, like, yeah. Only Christian valued democracy in the Middle East, though, right? You know,
right. Well, I think
Like-
in that quote, I think the implication is Western Christians,
yes,
not Christians
which
living
we know that's not the
in
case
the
either.
Middle East.
They be
Right.
spitting on fools. They be fucking straight up fist fighting pastors and shit. Like,
Well,
we've seen the videos.
Speaking of spitting,
Which I sent you like
so
last night. I sent you like 8 different instances of this. You know,
right.
like
So this is probably the one that I was aware of because I thought how ridiculous this was. I don't think I timed this, but we only going to play for like the first minute or 2.
minute or so anyway.
So this is Officer Tatum, like a mouthpiece for the right. I think he
Yeah.
was a
If
cop
he's
or
got
former cop
Netanyahu
or whatever.
on, for sure.
So apparently he did Israel trip. So here he is interviewing Bibi.
Netanyahu?
And he was basically saying some mess in terms like only one pastor. This was the clip that went viral. Only one pastor actually got spit at while he was there. So like play for like at least the first couple of minutes of this, maybe less.
Yeah.
We had an incredible time. We had only one incident where a small child spit on one of the pastors.
This clip was hilarious to me. I think Chris Menahan posted it on Twitter, and Brandon Tatum explains how great his trip to Israel was because he said only one young child spit on the pastor he was with, and an adult came by to tell him, don't spit on Christians. So, I mean, I guess that's just a successful trip in Israel. I mean, only one kid spit on us. That's pretty cool, I guess.
And in Israel, if you actually talk to the majority of Christians, talk to them, you'll see what they say. They say Israel is the only place where we're respected and protected.
And I can attest to that as a Christian who went to Israel. I spent 2 weeks there with the church, and we had an incredible time. We had only one incident where a small child spit on one of the pastors, and immediately after there was an adult that came by and said, that's not a representation of who we are. You know, we love you guys. You guys are always welcome here. And I have to say, no adults gave us any grief. We had no issues whatsoever in our experience there. It was actually an amazing experience.
That's amazing, dude. Only one child spit on you for being
fucking.
That's enough.
That's
right.
enough.
So
fucking
stooges. Right. So that wasn't representative.
Which,
yeah, sure.
Like I said, I sent you like 9 different instances, rapid fire of like Christians being spit on, harassed, and abused. You know, like bing, 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 like fucking just search on Twitter, Israel spits Christian. You'll get like fucking pages of instances. You know, like pretty apparent how they feel about the goys. I'm just here to tell you, you know, like they don't give a fuck, you know.
Right.
So
anyway, let's continue. Let's head back into the article. So this is continuing from Rift. Melissa O'Connor, a citizen journalist based out of San Diego, has been investigating these documents and warning people that they are becoming a product as a church member of a foreign nation. She is working to expose registered names working on behalf of the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which includes member of the LA GOP and National Republican Congressional Committee. It's sad to see the American Christian Church, specifically evangelicals, either being complacent or willing to be a product of a foreign nation. My hope is that the church today can see how they are being used to further an agenda that's not self-serving to Americans nor Christians worldwide. O'Connor also shares concerns over biblical texts like Genesis 12, chapter 12, verse 3, being misrepresented to exploit the American Christian Church as faithful supporters of a foreign nation. Would you feel comfortable attending a church that was accepting money to push a political narrative in support of a foreign nation? Well, I would argue that certain churches also take money from politicians as well, and they seem to be very comfortable with that. So this would not be too off the track of what certain churches would be willing to do, because of, I think, the very superficial idea that Israel obviously is a birthplace of Jesus, so it's very special, in terms of Christian faith. So by proxy, we need to support whatever Israel is doing, regardless of how heinous it looks to everybody else. Any thoughts?
No, I mean, like, I'm not surprised. That's my thoughts, Like, of course they're doing this. Easy way to manipulate people is through the church. So,
yeah.
But
you know what? I was thinking about this. Funny enough, I had been thinking about this for a while, especially like the idea of pulling someone like Tim Tebow, who, given what I've seen, what?
Fuck that guy. As a Florida State, dude, I'm right near Florida State. Fuck Tim Tebow. Like, fucking Gator, fucking stupid, kneeling on the fucking stupid grat. Fuck you. Fuck you, Tim Tebow. You know what you did. You remember with your nonsense.
But you know what, though? Like, given what I have seen in him in social media and otherwise, he seems
he's got
non-problematic at all.
He's like, got a narrative that he keeps,
Right.
Most of us Floridians know better. You know?
Well, you know what? But at least for him, if what happened to him, like if what happened to Charlie Kirk happened to him, and Christians were like, oh, that I can understand more.
Yeah.
Like, now, granted, you can argue what Tim does may be seemingly performative, but that to me, based on, especially growing up in a church, is kind of aligned to what, if you're a Christian, of what you should aspire to be and do. So that would make sense. For Charlie Kirk, however, it was the idea of like him being a podcaster, him basically being paid to be a mouthpiece for the right, which Tim Tebow, to his credit, you don't hear him necessarily go into politics at all. He's just more the idea of like, all I see him do mostly is, I think, does commentary for like college football games.
He's had his moments.
And like,
for sure.
What do you mean?
But being political, like,
in what way?
He's dipped his toe in a few times. Mainly during like the college stuff, and like keep in mind, like his transition from college to pro was like during that like Obama to Trump, switch over, and like he was definitely used as a pawn in that. Like, luckily he did fucking dog shit in the NFL, so it didn't matter.
Right. But I think he also might realize him being used, so he kind of stepped away from it, whereas Charlie kind of embraced it. So I think Tebow definitely seems to care about his image in terms of within the faith, that he wants to be as, and talks about his missionary, or used to talk about his missionary work every once in a while. But yeah, fairly unproblematic. But the idea of him even like wanting, like the idea that he's being targeted to spread Christian propaganda. Now, again, to be fair, I can't imagine him doing, or any of the people that were listed that were doing. I mean, Indy was saying this last night, especially with someone like Steph Curry. It's like Steph Curry doesn't need the money. So, you know, like any more money would be good. But I also feel like given their, I think especially within the NBA especially, there would be a lot more criticism, especially for someone like Steph, you know, given that many fans are more than likely pro-Palestinian, especially if they're younger. So I'm sure like for Steph Curry, it would be a little bit more problematic for him to side with Israel at this point. So, but as the article, as Nick kind of explained, it's just names that they're kind of throwing out there because they're prominent Christian names in Hollywood or within like entertainment. So just using them to kind of bridge that gap to try and spread a more positive message regarding Israel. But I highly doubt it's going to work in the way that they think it's going to. So, but we'll see. But regardless, this is just kind of a warning for anyone who does go to church and anyone who's seen this kind of bull. Just be careful, you know, of how they might use what's happening to kind of spread a pro-Israel message. So yeah, just be wary of that, especially among your friends who might be churchgoers, who might be subjected to this possibly.
Yep. Makes sense to me. So yeah, and just, you know, tell them to leave. You know, go form their own churches. Go do that. Like old, what is it? What is that? What is the old? I forget when I was going to church, there was the classic, well, the perfect church is like the old church, you know, like the early Christian church, where we all just hang out and eat dinner and somebody, you know, outs another person and Romans show up and it's a good time, you know?
Yeah. Talking about these stories is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us, you guys know what to do. I hate saying this every week, but
I know.
Scan the QR code, go to the Ko-fi link, or if you're lazy and forgot, type in !donate if you're in the YouTube chat live right now. And the link will pop up and you can donate any amount you can. We will appreciate any money you give us. Obviously, we don't want people to go broke supporting us. We do this out of love for you all. That being said, if you want to support us the free way, it's to like and subscribe, and please share our clips or stream to help fight the suppression on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment if you're watching in chat or if you're watching this as a clip after the fact. So tell us what you think about the idea that Israel is using the Christian church to spread its propaganda and possibly or potentially using prominent Christian figures in media in order to spread their message. So let us know what you think. If you are a Christian or churchgoer, have you seen any like more pro-Israel stances within your church? Let us know in the chat or let us know in the comments and help us get to 3K. We're getting there. I think hopefully we can get there by the end of the year.
Yeah. We're on track for that, I think.
It's like we're on track to do that possibly. And thank you guys for watching.
Yeah. Cool. Before we get to that, I know there's not that many people in chat, but Miss Macy's here. Oz was here a minute ago. Let me check the Rumble, see if anyone's over there. Restream was being weird. It cut out again. seems to be holding now. But I think just all the platforms are having trouble today. Wonder what's up with that. But anyway. All right, I'm ready to get to our next one. So,
yep.
Julio. All right. So you looked at this thumbnail last night and were like, what the fuck are you doing? Why is this thumbnail a thing? Right?
Yes.
And I wanted to have fun because Keith McHenry titled his article this, and this is what popped up in my brain. You know, just like a middle school girl trapper keeper, you know, that's what I was going for. Right? Like,
okay.
Anyway, he writes The Joys of Antifascism and how community is the cure. So Keith McHenry, for those who don't know, co-founder of Food Not Bombs, right? You know, you've heard that name pop up plenty of times with people like Tortuguita recently, right? You know, he was a member as well of the Tallahassee Food Not Bombs, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, big group, feed the people. They do real well over there. So Keith writes, the authorities might be trying to link Food Not Bombs to their threats to stamp out anarchists and Antifa. This July, NPR's Kern News published a story shooting at Alvarado ICE facility. Other attacks? The new normal? The report included this passage. Ara Yusuf describes herself as being close friends with many of the defendants, including Benjamin Song, who she said prefers to be called Susuka. Song, who was recently arrested, is accused of purchasing 4 guns found in connection with the shooting, according to court records. So we probably all heard this bit in the news about this ICE facility shooting, right? So Yusuf met them through protests and local activism, including the group Food Not Bombs, a nonprofit organization that distributes food that would otherwise be discarded to people experiencing homelessness. The government claims that there were 2 shooters, but only identifies Song. One defendant claims the group intended to launch fireworks outside the detention center on the 4th of July to provide solidarity with the prisoners on Independence Day. Kern reporter Carolyn Love wrote, at least one of the defendants told authorities he didn't know there would be any violence according to court records. So far, 11 people are charged with 3 counts of attempted murder of a federal officer and 3 counts of discharging a firearm in relation to and in furtherance of a crime of violence for the shooting. Court records don't identify who fired the shots. This suggests that it was an unidentified government informant that fired at the police when they came out to see what the noise was about. The Alvarado ICE facility shooting was highlighted by Trump and his cabinet at his October 8th Antifa roundtable. Trump claimed that in July, approximately a dozen Antifa-aligned militants stormed the ICE facility in Texas and then lured officers out of the building before firing dozens of rounds at police. They were crazy, frankly, shooting one Texas officer in the neck. The Soros Network, among others, were listed at Trump's Antifa roundtable as supporters of violence. Patel said his department is working with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is allowing us to map out those networks through their financial criminal activities, which has been going on for decades. So again, throwing all these right-wing keywords, right? You know, Antifa, Soros, all that shit, right? So, you know, Scott Goss Bessent was the chief investment officer of Soros Fund Management, a $30 billion family office. After graduation, Bessent went to work at the CIA law firm Brown Brothers Harriman, then did stints at the Soros Fund, Protege Partners, and others before Soros recruited him as CIO in 2011. In August 2015, Bessent announced that he will leave at the end of the year with a $2 billion allocation from Soros to start his own hedge fund. Just, you know, a freebie. Here, I'll let you loan $2 billion, you know? Soros Open Society Foundation provided funding for the NGOs that participated in the Orange Revolution and 2014 coup of Ukraine, as well as providing millions to individuals, including $9 million in 2024. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they think Soros is the thing they think it is, you know, because they tend to go along with what it is. So, food, not bomb meals are a port in the storm of these times of authoritarian threats, building community, celebrating our independence, and cultivating a society of compassion outside the drumbeat of fascism. We can avoid being framed in one of the FBI's plots for speaking up when conversations or jokes about getting guns, suggesting arson, or other acts of violence by speaking up and reminding them that Food Not Bombs is dedicated to nonviolent direct action. We aren't passive, but also we don't support the organizing of physical attacks against people. As our name makes clear, we are food and not bombs. I think they're pretty clear about that. You know? So, enter this guy. So, you've probably seen this on your social media feeds, at least in passing, right? And this, I know this looks like Michael Rappaport. It is not Michael Rappaport in a mask. We're going to get to who this is in a second. But let's listen to what Fox News has to say on this. This guy is supposedly an Antifa insider, right? Fox's News ex-Antifa member, right? So
insider Eric, who was part of Antifa for 10 years. He's disguised himself to protect his life. All right, so Eric, how'd you get roped into the whole Antifa thing?
Hey, Jesse, how you doing? It started when I was young. I got in through working with different groups like the ARA, Cop Watch, Food Not Bombs, when the punk rock movement and stuff when I was younger.
So he was a part of Food Not Bombs, punk rock, right? Fitting all the groups, right?
Growing up in Seattle, probably about 9th grade or so is when I started.
What'd they have you doing in 9th grade?
You know, mostly recruiting, working with youth, getting, you know, and just going out, spitting out the message. And the thing is to, you know, a lot of people get into it because they want to, you know, so, you know, there's an error, especially when you're younger, that, you know, you're out here and you're doing something, you know, and that's very appealing.
So was violence like the core mission of the movement?
At that age, I thought it was a perk, yeah.
So you got a kick out of it?
Oh, for sure.
And that's kind of how you recruited, like, you know, hey, come join this crew. We're going to have some fun, get into some trouble, blow off some steam.
Oh, absolutely. You know, because you know, you're young and you're idealistic and you feel like you don't have a lot of control in your life. And, you know, so if you can go out there and you know, make yourself a hassle, then that's better than being an anonymous you know, kid.
That's true. So I mean, what kind of violence were you guys getting into? Like explosives or vandalism?
Oh,
what?
Yeah, so it would have been about 9th grade or so. Get on a few years. Growing up in Seattle, we had those the riots in '99, and yeah, I was ready to go, man. I had little Molotov cocktails in my bedroom and a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook that I had photoshopped or photocopied at the time from a friend of mine's older brother. You know, like, you know, it was just at the time.
So this guy is a clown in and of himself, but you might find out he's been used before. Like, this guy Fox has used multiple times, right? So, you know, here he is, Antifa member, but, you know, FBI turns on Mexican mafia informant, right? I mean, they completely put him as something completely different, right? So here's Rodney Latstetter. Fox News has faced ridicule online. Go ahead.
Actor for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. So supposedly a former Antifa member, an ex-gang member, and guests who all appear out of the same build, eyes, and voice, leading viewers to suspect it's the same man each time. Internet sleuths recently compared screenshots and suggested The mystery guest resembles Robert J. O'Neill, the former Navy SEAL who claims to have fired the kill shot on Osama bin Laden. O'Neill, who's been a frequent Fox News contributor and commentator for years, has a long history of appearances on the network. The recurring use of Mac's figures resembling him has sparked fresh criticism of Fox credibility and its penchant for sensational, poorly vetted segments. So, yeah, the internet sleuths.
You know what, though?
Sleuthing, yes.
Someone brought this up. Actually, I didn't know my camera's moving. Someone brought this up that I was watching earlier today. We're having a second round. There's going to be another round of No Kings protests this upcoming weekend. And already, Republicans are like, oh, we got to watch out for the crowds because these crowds are Antifa and like hate America and blah, 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 blah. And given like, people are saying this one will probably be a bigger deal because given, you know, like the fact that the government shut down, the fact that like a lot of people on both sides are being screwed, the fact that ICE has targeted various cities throughout the country that has affected many people, the fact that a lot of rights are in process of being taken away through the big beautiful bill and all that people are still kind of freaking out about, the fact that economy wise we're still doing shit, you're going to probably have more of a larger coalition of MAGA and liberals together fighting against Trump. And then, so look, I will just say to people who are thinking of going to be careful, because given what the Republicans are saying now, like they want a reason for the armed forces to bust in your head over the weekend. So and they're using that language like Antifa and like all these other things to kind of justify the idea of like, oh, we're going to bring the cops on you regardless of who you, even if we suspect you, which could be anybody at this point.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to bash your head in. So this is very dangerous in terms of, so obviously this guy is nothing but a narc, but the fact that, so the media is not really helping matters either. But the fact that, especially this weekend, that people are going to be protesting, which people have the right to do, but our government, and because our politicians are so craven, that any form of dissent is going to lead to political violence on their end.
Right.
You know, this is where we're at in the country right now.
And even though we know the No Kings shit is completely controlled opposition nonsense, not to say everyone going will be, but definitely organized by that. So, you know, you'll see all your Democratic politicians put on their kente cloth and head out there, but you know, it's gonna be like, you got to be careful right now when the fucking Trump's administration is willing to put anyone on lists for anything and then just snatch you up and deport you for no reason. So, you know, like shit's fucking, got to be careful out there. But on October 3rd, Fox News' Jesse Waters aired Antifa whistleblower breaks silence, warns of violence, interviewing an actor he calls Eric about how he got involved with Antifa. Waters starts by explaining Eric has to disguise himself to protect his life. He goes on asking, how did you get roped into this whole Antifa thing? It started when I was young. I got in through working with different groups like the ARA, Cop Watch, Food Not Bombs, and the punk rock movement. The pretend former Antifa Eric also refers to the WTO protest in Seattle and claimed he had a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook. Keith McHenry rewrote the Anarchist Cookbook after the FBI entrapped 5 young Occupy Cleveland cooks, including 2 Food Not Bomb volunteers in an FBI-invented Mayday bombing plot of a bridge, and noticed that the federal complaint repeatedly noted that they possessed William Powell's book, which they admitted they had provided to the defendants. So all the hype about anarchists and Antifa suggests that the federal authorities might start attempting to increase their disruption of peace groups like Food Not Bombs. Trump signed an executive order designating Antifa a domestic terrorist organization on September 22nd, even though there is no Antifa organization, so that can mean anyone could be a target. After that, he issued NSPM-7, Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence Presidential National Security Memorandum. Okay? So, on October 4th, Trump's aide Stephen Miller told Newsmax, "Every time we make an arrest, we are initiating an investigation into the entire domestic terror network." He adds the president issued a National Security Presidential Memorandum, an NSPM, making clear that it is the national security priority of the United States law enforcement to dismantle, disrupt, defeat, and destroy those domestic terror networks. So the Trump administration isn't only targeting organizations or groups, but even individuals and entities whom NSPM-7 says can be identified by any of the following indicia or indicators of violence. This is what they are claiming are indicators of violence, which include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, support for the overthrow of the United States government, or hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on morality. So really anyone with a thinking brain and a compassionate heart, says Keith McHenry. The FBI has used informants to suggest bombings and other acts of terrorism in the Food Not Bombs community, such as happened with the Cleveland Food Not Bombs, on our volunteer Eric McDavid, who was framed and sentenced to 19 years for an FBI-invented plot that he was not aware of, believing that Sarah, the informant, was just joking. The feds can try to cause infighting by hinting someone is an informant, so it's wise to never make such an accusation. Those making suggestions use violence may have been encouraged by someone they keep randomly running into and otherwise are great and dedicated activists. But the main thing I would suggest is have fun and enjoy all the beautiful connections we make when volunteering with Food Not Bombs. Thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, as I said, this is going to be used to weaponize any dissent. You know, especially now that you have a larger coalition now, given that people are struggling. And again, given that the federal government is shut down still, and we're about 2 weeks into that now.
Yeah.
That people are. Look, my hope is that something happens before Halloween, because by then, you know, federal workers would have gone without a check.
Right.
And I don't want to assume that federal workers have money saved up to be able to ride it out for however long they need to, especially now as we're heading into the holidays and people are going to be traveling, people are going to be buying more food and like all this other stuff. So it's going to be bad. And I think we've said this, like, I think early in the year, like things are going to get worse. Like since the spring, we were saying this. And I think we're now heading into that point where things are going to be bad. And you're going to have more of, well, there's two things that I noticed that's happening. Well, really one thing, but we've said this on the show before. It's the blame game now tribally in terms of, oh, like it's your fault. Like pro-Palestinian, like leftists, you didn't vote. So because of that, you know, we have Trump, you know, or versus on the other side, oh, you guys voted for Trump. You're an idiot. You should not have voted for Trump. and look at how he's turned on you and all this kind of stuff. So we're kind of pointing fingers at each other. And I was saying this to somebody earlier today. This is the perfect distraction right now in terms of us pointing fingers at each other, blaming each other for voting the way that people did, where either way we're fucked in either scenario. It was just a question of how fucked. Meanwhile, the corporations are getting away scot-free, licking their lips with the amount of money that they've been accumulating, regardless of who's in office, and are basically using their wealth to grab our politicians nuts in order for them to do their dirty work. So it's just the focus right now has been so bad on purpose in terms of us fighting each other versus who's the true final boss. And we're not even paying attention to the idea of, like, again, not even the politicians, it's the corporations and donors above them that are really pulling the shit. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about, I saw somebody who made a comment, about a MAGA woman who regretted her vote. And I always say, especially to liberals, you can't have that political superiority when you were willing to vote for a woman who was complicit in genocide.
Right.
So you can't use that mark of holier than thou or politically better than any MAGA person, because and look, I'm going to go off on a tangent for a little bit, but here's the thing, and this is liberals. This is more directed at you because I see this mostly coming from you. That's why MAGA hates you, because you give this air of snootiness, of knowing more than them, of the elitism, that you look down on many of these people who in a lot of ways are not much better off than you, but you kind of come off as knowing better and all this kind of stuff that makes MAGA guys hate you. And, and it's like, we shouldn't be walking in with this kind of hatred for each other that we're not being focused on who's really the one that we really should be targeting. And as I said, with these protests, Republicans are already saying, or at least giving the signal of, we're going to cap people for any dissent that they might bring out over the weekend. And that could be towards anybody, doesn't matter who it is. So these are the people that you should be yelling at, not each other. But we're pointing fingers at each other, and that's what they want.
Yep.
And it's frustrating to me that, which in a lot of ways I understand, but your neighbor is not the enemy here.
Yeah, it's definitely up versus down, So, tale as old as time. Distract people with horse race nonsense,
Right.
But anyway, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. You can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or scan that QR code on your screen if you would like to help us out with a bit of a donation. We appreciate it. But, if you're like one of the poors like ourselves, you can just like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. How dumb was that actor on Fox News? Otherwise, thanks for watching.
I argue he's not dumb, because if they're bringing him back, then obviously he's doing something right.
I just do they think people are not going to figure it out? I mean, clearly they do. Clearly they know people will figure it out. They're just they don't care, but anyway, silliness. All right. Where are we at? We got to go here. Cool. someone said, convenient that he's covering his face. And KYE said, I have the Anarchist Cookbook, bought it at the Tower Records in 1989. Also easy, available online if you're wanting to find that. Anyway, Driving Me Macy, there isn't an outlet that preaches the main issues every day until it gets on people's nerves. You're not going to get a coalition. Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Right.
Anyway, he went over on the Rumble. Luckily, it's still working. Twitter's had to make like 8 new streams for every time it's lost a connection, so that'll be interesting to figure out. Hopefully, I actually have something to like clip up, you know. So that'll be interesting to figure out. But you ready for the next one? I'm ready.
I am.
Cool. Let's go.
So this is probably one of the big stories in mainstream media and independent media this week. Trump marketed a quote-unquote ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. So at least the beginning of the week, there was a lot of praise, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. In mainstream media, in terms of more on the Israeli side, of course, of the 20 hostages that were alive were let go. So let's play this clip. I think it's from NBC. Of just one example of what you probably saw within the last 48 hours in terms of this ceasefire deal. And then we'll dial it back and then kind of give the reality of what is happening on the ground that mainstream media is not going to cover. So,
scenes of joy tonight as Israeli hostages are reunited with their families after more than 700 days in captivity. And Palestinian prisoners of war welcome home to massive cheering crowds on the West Bank. It is the first step of a 20-part ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. It is a day that President Trump calls a historic dawn for a new Middle East. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. President Trump joined other Middle Eastern leaders in Egypt to sign that peace deal. But as Maribel Gonzalez reports, more work still needs to be done.
Emotional reunions as the final 20 hostages held by Hamas were reunited with their families across Israel. People cheered in Tel Aviv celebrating this milestone moment. Under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees were met with large crowds as they also reunited with their relatives in the West Bank. President Donald Trump declared a dawn of a new Middle East.
This deal, this once-in-a-lifetime deal, nobody's ever seen anything like what's happening today.
On Monday, photos released by the Israeli Prime Minister's office show a freed hostage playing with his children for the first time in 2 years. Families say they never stopped fighting for the release of their loved ones.
Keep sharing your stories to policymakers. Keep telling us what do you think needs to happen and give us ideas on how we can break the deadlock. And we kept doing that. They kept opening the White House for us. And President Trump has done it.
President Trump said that phase 2 of his 20-point ceasefire plan to end the war between Israel and Hamas has already started as he meets with world leaders in Egypt for a summit on Gaza's future and peace in the Middle East.
You look at Gaza, it needs a lot of cleanup.
This is clearly, in my mind, I think in the mind of everyone in this room, probably one of the most important days for world peace in 50 years.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
Here at home, Minnesotans with close ties to the region say they're experiencing a mix of emotions. For those with family in Israel and Palestine, there is a sense of relief that a ceasefire has been reached, but there are questions about the long-term future in the Middle East and whether lasting peace can actually be achieved. Today, we spoke with both the Jewish Community Relations Council and a Palestinian-American business owner.
So happy and relieved, and at the same time, I'm still wearing the yellow ribbon because only 4 bodies were returned. Only 4. And so there are a lot of families that are still waiting.
I mean, I'm happy that we have a ceasefire finally, but very skeptical about what goes next.
The United Nations says that there is major progress in getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, including many tons of food and medical supplies.
All right. So I hate being a Debbie Downer.
Yep.
Actually, no, I don't.
I don't. That's called being a realist.
Right.
You know?
And we've seen this before. So, but of course, it was very, at least in mainstream media, it was very slanted towards the Israeli aspect of this assault. So what we do here, we want to give both sides or multiple sides as possible, but especially on the oppressed side. So we're going to pull this article from, well, SheerPost pulled it from On the Weiss. This was written by Hossam Moumadi, who writes, Palestinians free from Israeli prison deny reunion with families as Trump claims a forever peace. So, what happened to it? Here we go. So, Hossam writes,
Why? I hate when it does that. Hold on. I'll fix it. Like, that's a new thing with our, like, remote thing that it does. All right, I'll just pull it up over here. Come on. Do the thing. What slide is it? 38?
it is 38.
Okay. Hold on. We're getting there. 31, 38. Slideshow. Loading. Why is it loading? That weird. There it is.
All right. You need to zoom into that.
Yeah, dude. Try that.
There we go. Thank you. Palestinians in Gaza lived another day without bombs dropping over their heads. Well, that changed within 24 hours. As the first phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continued into Monday, we saw the release of Israeli captives from Gaza and the release of 1,718 out of 10,000 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. So notice right there, like, they were happy with the 20 that were alive still, but there's so many Palestinians who are still not freed yet, if they're going to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, again, you're not going to hear that on mainstream media, but I digress. At around 8 a.m. local time, Hamas's armed wing, the Al-Wassam Brigades, handed the first group of 7 Israeli captives to the International Committee of the Red Cross in Gaza without any ceremonies or media exposure. The second group of 13 Israeli captives came an hour later. Meanwhile, the Israeli prison services moved hundreds of Palestinians out of its detention centers. In the decimated city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, thousands of Palestinians gathered to receive the hundreds of Palestinians released from Israeli prison, including 25 West Bank Palestinians whom the Israeli Internal Intelligence Service, the Shabak, Shin Bet, recommended to be deported to Gaza.
You can't. I forgot. You can't do the thing. Here you go.
A total of 1,718 Palestinians were released into the Gaza Strip, all of whom were abducted by Israeli forces from within Gaza during the past 2 years. In addition, Israel released 25 Palestinians who had been serving high or life sentences in Israeli prisons, 80 of whom were released in the West Bank, while the rest were deported to Gaza and Egypt. In the town of Beth Tuna, adjacent to Ramallah, dozens of Palestinians gathered in expectation of the released prisoners, who were announced to be released from Israel's Ofer detention center just outside of town. Israeli drones flew over the gathering, dropping leaflets that read, "We are watching you everywhere. If you show any support for a terrorist group, you will expose yourself to arrest and punishment." Great. At around 11 a.m., 2 Red Cross marked buses drove through Betuna as Palestinians waved at the released prisoners along the way. It decided smaller numbers than the crowds that had received released prisoners during the previous January through March ceasefire. At the Ramallah Cultural Palace, prisoners' families and crowds of Palestinians gathered to receive the released prisoners. In the crowds, the family of a prisoner, Nurad Abdul Rub, 45, included 2 of his sisters, his cousin, and his paralyzed mother, stood on the sidewalk trying with difficulty to get a glimpse of the Red Cross buses as they arrived. He has been in jail for 19 years with a life sentence, and the last time we visited him was before October 2023, the cousin told Mondoweiss. For more than 2 years, we haven't seen him, and the news we had about him through lawyers was very limited. His father and one of his brothers died during his time in jail, the cousin explained, and his mother suffered a stroke last year that left her unable to move or speak. But we brought her because she has been very anxious to see him. The family left Jenin in the northern West Bank at 6 a.m. to avoid the Israeli army expected road closures, as it did during the previous ceasefire. The Israeli Shabak came at our house yesterday and warned us not to show any sign of celebration, and they told us that Murad will be released here. After all the prisoners left the bus, the family discovered that Murad wasn't among them. Minutes later, they received confirmation from the Red Cross that he had been deported to Egypt. As a cousin shared the news, the elderly mother broke into tears and random screams in her wheelchair. As her daughters helped her into the car, one of them tried to console her. "He went to Egypt to study. He'll be back later," she said. The mother moved her hand in the apparent refusal to hear, continuing to weep. Meters away, the older brother of Abdullah Baham, 40, one of the prisoners set to be released, had just learned that he too had been deported. The brother was in Ramallah by 7 a.m. to wait for Abdallah, who had served 18 years of his life sentence in Israeli prison. The family and the entire village are waiting in Kafur Kadum to celebrate his release, he explained. And the Shabbat came yesterday and warned us not to celebrate. Our younger brother and our mother died during his period of imprisonment, he continued, and our father has been waiting for this day for the past 18 years. The feeling is tragic. At least he is free now, thank God, he added. Inside the Cultural Palace building, groups of people gathered around the released prisoners, listening to their stories. One of them, Luthi Rashdan, who had been detained without trial for a year, showed his broken glasses held together with duct tape. "I asked the prison services to let me change my glasses for a year, but they ignored me," he told a small crowd. On the other side of the hall, Alam al-Rai, who had been in prison serving a life sentence since 2006, struggled to speak, his voice low and barely audible. His short white hair and his features gave the impression that he was in his 60s. He is only 47. At the end of the prisoner exchange, between 9,000 and 10,000 Palestinians will remain behind bars, including around 5,000 Palestinians who are being held without charge or trial and without clear release dates under Israeli systems of administrative detention. Palestinian political leaders held in Israeli prison were excluded from Monday's swap after a protracted and drawn-out negotiations process and Israeli interventions. The most notable among the prisoners are popular Fatah leader Moran Bahuthi and PFLP Secretary General Ahmad Sadat, both of whom had been unable to participate in Palestinian politics due to their imprisonment. Both leaders are known for their widespread popular support and stances in favor of Palestinian national unity. The prisoner exchange took place as U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Tel Aviv where he was received by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife at the airport. Trump headed to occupied Jerusalem to deliver a speech at the Israeli Knesset ahead of his flight to Egypt, where he's expected to preside over a conference with some 20 state leaders to officially announce his peace plan to definitely end the Israeli war on Gaza. In his speech, Trump said it was a historic dawn of a new Middle East and the beginning of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel. Trump praised Netanyahu, who he called hard to deal with. The U.S. president also lauded Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, whom he had said was called in to draft a plan for the end of the war, all with the wave of applause by the Knesset members. Trump also thanked the Arab and Muslim countries that participated in his plan for the end of the war, which did not receive any applause from the Knesset. During Trump's speech, Palestinian Knesset member Ayman Odeh and left-wing anti-Zionist Knesset member Ophir Kassif raised signs calling for the recognition of Palestine as a state and were forcibly removed from the hall. Trump commented on their removal, saying, "That was very efficient."
Nope, sorry.
The U.S. president also said that Israel had won what could be won by force of arms, and it should translate victories on the battlefield into peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. He added that the focus of Palestinians in Gaza should be on restoring the fundamentals of stability, safety, dignity, and economic development. Trump also touched on the issue of Iran, asserted that the Iranians want a deal, and added that we're going to see if we can do something. Toward the end of his speech, Trump said that he wished Israel's president, Isaac Sarat, would pardon Netanyahu for his charges of fraud and bribery. Trump ended his visit to Israel after 4 hours, considered one of the shortest U.S. president visits to Israel. At Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump presided over the signing ceremony of the Gaza ceasefire deal, along with the leaders of the mediating countries, Egypt and Qatar. At the moment the deal was signed, Trump commented, "It took 3,000 years to get to this point."
Ow. We'll do this. And this.
What is it?
I just fixed it so that we can have cameras on.
Okay.
Why did it go all the way to the bottom? There it is. You're right here.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi thanked Trump for his efforts to end the war, noting that real leadership is not in waging wars, but in the capacity to end them. Al-Sisi added that the signed deal should open the pathway for a two-state solution, and the Palestinians, like all peoples who have their own state, are no exception. The PA was represented by Mahmoud Abbas, the PA president, who had not received an invitation to join the summit until Sunday. Although present at the ceremony, the PA is not a signatory to the deal, and its potential role in governing the Gaza Strip after the war remains uncertain. So that should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Israel and Hamas still have to negotiate terms for the definite end to the war based on Trump's plan. This includes the body meant to rule over the Strip, which Hamas and Palestinian factions insist must be an independent Palestinian body of technocrats.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means specifically, and it seems weird and I don't think they would actually select that. Technocrats?
No.
No. I wonder if that got lost in translation or something, or who knows. Maybe. But sounds weird to me every time I've heard it.
In contrast, Trump's plan would include a board of peace headed by Trump himself that would be in charge of running Gaza. Okay. Another point to be negotiated is the disarmament of Hamas and other Palestinian resistance factions. The Palestinian factions of the Palestinian state, thank you, whilst Trump's plan would see the resistance movement of disarmament and makes no mention of Palestinian statehood. So, yeah. So basically it's all bullshit. And even with it, as we are reading this, Israel already broke their ceasefire. Again, it's not going to be reported on in mainstream media. So actually, if you can go to the slide after the article.
Yeah. You also had one from Khaleesi in here, right?
Yes.
This one right here.
That I just added. So Khaleesi tweeted, major news, Israel is not signatory to Middle East peace agreement. So meaning they didn't sign the contract or whatever. So everyone else did. So Trump, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey.
Yeah, all the standards.
But no Israel. But no Israel. So
who knows?
So actually go back to the tweet.
Yep. Up here.
Yeah. How is it that Israel has not signed Trump's Middle East peace plan? And I have another tweet after that. So next slide. So this is from at K_me_82. This is not a peace treaty. It's a regional alignment statement led by authoritarian or pragmatic regimes who have historically traded Palestinian rights for geopolitical favors. And then there is Trump, the ambassador of the genocide, dressing cruelty in the language of peace. This is so disgusting. Totally agree.
Did that. And then I brought this.
So you brought this. You did. So can you explain this?
If I can remember this dude's name. Hold on. I will tell you. Because Sam Husseini pulled it. If I can find his website. Where's it at? I'll just go to his Twitter. I just want to get the name of this guy. I just went to Husseini.org. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Because I do believe that is his thing. 2, 1. Come on, internet, you can do it. Where's it at? Where is it at? Oh, there it is. Ghassan Kanafani, right?
Okay.
So is this dude's name pretty famous when it regards to Palestinian independence in general, right? People should know that name, and I should have remembered it. But he was interviewed long time ago about peace talks, right? And why won't your organization engage in peace talks with the Israelis? Well, he's going to tell you.
Why won't your organization engage in peace talks with the Israelis?
You don't mean exactly peace talks. You mean capitulation, surrendering.
Why not just talk?
Talk to whom?
Talk to the Israeli leaders.
That's kind of conversation between the sword and the neck, you mean?
Well, if there were no swords and no guns in the room, you could still talk.
No, I had never seen any talk between a colonialist case and a national liberation movement.
But despite this, why not talk?
Talk about what?
Talk about the possibility of not fighting.
Not fighting for what?
Not fighting at all, no matter what for.
Yeah, and people usually fight for something and they stop fighting for something. So you can't tell me even why should we speak about what?
Well, stop fighting.
For what? Or talk about stop fighting why?
Talk to stop fighting, to stop the death and the misery, the destruction, the pain.
The misery and the destruction and the pain and the death of whom?
Of Palestinians, of Israelis, of Arabs.
Of the Palestinian people who are uprooted, thrown in the camps, living in starvation, killed for 20 years, and forbidden to use even the name Palestinians.
They're better that way than dead, though.
Maybe to you, but to us, it's not. To us, to liberate our country, to have dignity, to have respect, to have our mere human rights is something as essential as life itself.
So, you know, I felt it very fitting. I mean, they've been dealing with this shit for far too long now. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I love how it's always met with like two-state, both sides nonsense every fucking time. Like, we could just not. That'd be great. But it's just silly at this point.
So I have one more slide.
Yeah.
And the segment. So this is my former roommate. He posted this on his Instagram. Not sure. I forgot where it's from. But this will kind of summarize the segment, I think, very well. Much will be said in the news this week of the 20 Israeli hostages who returned to their families. You will know their names and faces and families and stories. I hope you can find space in your heart for the survivors of the 1.9 million displaced Palestinians who are also returning home this week to piles of rubble and dust. People have also have names and families and stories, none of which will get nearly the coverage the hostages do.
Yep.
Hostages do, sorry. So, you know, thinking about that in light of the 20 that are alive at least, that will probably get a lot of play, probably a lot of press over the next few weeks. And we will not even think about the thousands of lives that are now dust, that will not be named, that Palestinians will have no closure as to what happened to their families. For in this case, some families, even if they were released, were deported. So again, you're not going to hear that in mainstream media. So keep that in mind when you hear these 20 Israelis who, yeah, we can be happy that they were released, but there's so many more Palestinians whose names we'll never know. And being forgotten about. And I think, and I saw someone mention this on social media, I think earlier tonight, as I was working out, you know, I think especially in light of the first segment where, you know, Israel is looking to bring in Christian churches to kind of bring about the Hasbara, social media will be heavily suppressed in terms of anything Palestinian. So I think even for us, especially given, you know, I think we definitely should consider we haven't like saving all of our segments, especially regarding Israel, because YouTube will definitely do what it can to crack down on that. You know, especially now with TikTok possibly being bought by Zionists, you know, they will do everything now to kind of clean up their act to kind of make this go away and kind of whitewash this assault for everything that's worth. So I think moving forward, we definitely should be more mindful of that, you know, not just us, but independent media in general, of, you know, what Israel might be planning to do and trying to clean up this image, which, again, don't think it's going to work, but any sort of resistance is going to be met with consequence. So I think having to kind of watch out for that moving.
Yeah.
And I say that goes along with our audience as well, who at least right now are watching this. And if you are definitely pro-Palestine, but even on social media, I suggest to be careful of how you. I don't even want to say that because that's censoring, but just be mindful as you post, you know, of what could potentially get you, as you saw with me that I shared like last week, about my censorship online. So you guys should be careful of that as well. But talking about this story and other stories like this is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us financially in order to help us keep the lights on and kind of start thinking in terms of how to pay off our bills for the upcoming year, you can scan the QR code or go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in the chat right now live, you can type in ! donate and the Ko-fi link will come up and you can click it and give as much as you want, as much as you can. Anything as low as $1 will be extremely great for us, and we will appreciate you guys for that. But we don't want to put my people out in terms of paying for us. So if you want to support us, please like and subscribe, and please share our clips or the stream to help fight the suppression, and make sure to leave a comment on YouTube, either in the chat or in the comment section if you're watching this as a clip. And let us know what you think in terms of the reality that certain Palestinians, while they might have been released, might have been deported, or even with the idea of how, even on mainstream media, like the emphasis has been on the 20 Israeli hostages that were released, and none of the thousands of Palestinians who are still jailed, some who are being deported, and most we would never know their names given that they're now dust on the Gaza Strip right now. So let us know what you think in terms of the bias mainstream media has for Israel in terms of the hostages versus the millions of Palestinians who may never have that kind of peace and closure. Let us know what you think about that. And thank you guys for watching.
Yay! We did it.
I would say yay, but
I know, dude. I'm just, fucking sad. I mean, it's like, the entirety of mainstream media is like victory lapping for Trump right now over it. It's just like you're not even looking. Like right now, it's fucking. They're already fucking the ceasefire. Right? Like I don't get it. But someone said in the chat, where's it at? Get down here. I'll find it, I promise. Long enough for their guns to cool. Almost, says Lynette Ellsworth. Fucking. I mean, it's the classic Rafat al-Arir line of, ceasefire means, Palestinian cease and Israeli fires, Like, fucking. But anyway, like, dumb. Sean the Accord Lord, love y'all. Iron in support for me will be back soon. Sadly, financial situation is rocky at the time. Hey man, just like sharing the video, all that stuff. We get it, dude. You give enough anyway.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Yeah, appreciate you, dude.
I really love it.
He also says, bruh, people are reporting that Yum Brands companies are blocking pro-Palestinian people, which people like that are gonna get fucking sued. Like, for like discrimination, like takes one litigious person, but anyway, in other news, in the other parts of the world, right? You may have been paying attention. So recently, Collin, they gave out the Nobel Peace Prize, also known as the War's Peace Prize. Because seemingly they only give it to people who are capable of bombing 7 countries and whatnot anymore. They don't give it to like other nominees like Dr. Hassam Abu Safia or even Greta Thunberg was nominated, I do believe. Plenty of others were in the mix, right? Trump, I think himself was in the mix, wasn't he? Didn't BB?
Yes.
BB put him in? Fucking idiocy.
Which I would argue was probably the marketing behind this ceasefire deal.
Peace deal, right. Yeah. So it's from Robert in Lakesh, right? Writing in the Palestinian Chronicle, who writes the pro-war Nobel Peace Prize winner is a friend of Netanyahu and apparently of the WEF. Funny how that works. So Venezuelan opposition figure Maria Corina Machado has been named by the Norwegian Nobel Committee as the Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2025, a title which U.S. President Donald Trump had hoped to receive after being nominated by Netanyahu. The 58-year-old's victory was announced in Oslo this Friday with a statement by the prize committee stating that the award was presented to Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. So clearly Oslo's got a fucking agenda, don't it? Fiorella Isabel, everyone knows that the unstated requirement to win a Nobel Peace Prize is to be a puppet of the empire or a war criminal, a fine accomplishment in our psychopathically ruled society. Congrats to Maria Corina Machado for cementing yourself as a failed tool of Yankee imperialism. Hassan Mafi, the Nobel Peace Prize isn't political. Also, recent Nobel Peace Prize winners in 2021, Dmitry Muratov, Russian opposition. 2022, Ales Biladsky, Belarusian opposition. 2023, Narges Mohammadi, an Iranian opposition. In 2025, Maria Corina, Venezuelan opposition. So, as well as people like Obama, getting his, right? That sort of thing. So, the Venezuelan opposition leader who was barred from running in the last round of elections over allegations of alleged corruption and support for U.S. sanctions on the country is, however, not an advocate of peaceful transition. Instead, she has openly advocated for regime change to be thrust upon her country by foreign powers. Machado is also a supporter of U.S. sanctions against Venezuela, while her policy platform is of the far-right persuasion and advocates for the total privatization of state assets, most notably the country's oil reserves. So, look who she's talking to here. Everyone knows this fucking idiot, right? That's fucking, what is it? Kushner? Trump Jr.? This fucking dude? Yeah. Luckily Rumble gets to platform him. Isn't that nice? Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado told Trump Jr. that she plans to privatize Venezuelan industries. So we'll let her spit out this nonsense.
About Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. We have more oil. Infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources, oil, gas, minerals, land, technology. And as you said before, we have a strategic location, hours from the United States. So we're going to do this right. We know what we have to do. And American companies are in, super strategic position to invest. This country, Venezuela, is going to be the brightest opportunity for investment of American companies, of good people that are going to make a lot of money.
Any questions? No. Standard fucking capitalism.
Capitalism. Yep.
So, but we'll keep going. We got President Donald Trump has eyed the Nobel Peace Prize, suggesting he should win it over with what he claims is a historic achievement of ending 8 wars. Much of the pushback against the American leader came due to his right-wing policies and aggressive foreign policy, which included attacking Iran. In addition to this, the U.S. has now mobilized its Navy and is threatening military intervention to unseat the current government in Caracas. Nobel Peace Prize winner Machado is an ally of the Trump movement and has shared platforms with hardline right-wing groups, including neo-Nazis. So, yeah, standard shit for right-wingers at this point. So, here's Manolo de los Santos. The Nobel Peace Prize was just awarded to Machado, a woman who publicly endorsed Trump's plan for U.S. military invasion of Venezuela and supported the extrajudicial killing of Venezuelans by a U.S. naval force. This is what the committee now calls peace. She totally supports his strategy, and I've said on behalf of the Venezuelan people that I'm very grateful. I think it's the right thing to do. It's courageous, it's visionary, but attacking a speedboat, killing citizens, I'm in favor of the U.S. dismantling this criminal structure. So there's that. She also once wrote to Israeli war criminal Netanyahu and asked him to help to overthrow Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. In 2025, you get a Nobel Peace Prize for trying to convince a foreign genocidal apartheid state to attack your own country and overthrow its leadership so that Washington can privatize its largest natural oil reserves on Earth. Any questions? Any questions for the chat? How this is working? No? Okay. So, notably, Machado is a staunch supporter of Israel and maintains close ties to the Likud party. Back in 2018, she even wrote a letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu calling upon him and others to wage a regime change operation to overthrow the socialist government of Maduro. The following is an excerpt for that letter. It should be noted that it is not only our population that is suffering the widespread and systematic attack of the current regime, its criminal nature, closely linked to drug trafficking and terrorism, represents a real threat to other countries, including and especially Israel. The current regime, which holds the power of government hostage in Venezuela, exhibits its close collaboration with Iran and extremist groups, which, as we all know, pose a threat to Israel. So you could see why she's getting this shit. So Machado has also appeared on Israeli television to advocate for the reestablishment of ties between Venezuela and Israel, even vowing that under her leadership, the embassy would be moved to occupy Jerusalem. She also put out a video thanking former U.S.-backed Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido for recognizing Israel's capital as occupied Jerusalem. In 2020, Machado signed a cooperation agreement with Netanyahu, Likud's party, on political ideology and social issues, as well as advancing on issues related to strategy, geopolitics, and security. And I imagine the, brown native people of Venezuela probably aren't down with this. I'm betting,
right.
Like earlier this year, Machado participated alongside her Likud party allies in the ultra-nationalist Patriots for Europe summit, where both sold themselves as frontline warriors in the battle for Western civilization. One of the most prominent slogans at the right-wing conference was Reconquista, referencing European military efforts to expel Islamic influence, which included the mass forced conversion of Muslim and Jews to Christianity. Literally the fucking Crusades, amidst the slaughter and displacement of civilians to achieve this goal. Nice. Nice, isn't that nice? Understanding that Machado is an ardent supporter of Israel's genocide and stands with it in its implementation of apartheid policies, there's been an enormous backlash online against the Norwegian Nobel committees, with some going as far as advocating for the abolishment of the Peace Prize altogether. Yup, the Nobel Prize appears to be suffering a legitimacy problem in the wake of this backlash, as many question how a Peace Prize could be presented to a supporter of regime change, economic sanctions, and ally herself with a regime that is committing genocide. That is who you chose, Nobel Committee. So, people might be wondering why the Nobel Prize is like this. Well, this is a CIA operative in and of himself, but I'll let him give some hints.
Nobel was the inventor of dynamite. That's how he made his money. So when you hear the name Nobel, you don't think about dynamite. He invented dynamite, hand grenades, howitzer rounds, and munitions. That was all Nobel. He took a huge chunk of his fortune and started the Nobel Peace Prize. Now you just think, oh my God, Barack Obama just won the Dalai Lama just won the Martin Luther King and won the, like, this guy made it off of dynamite.
That's insane.
Right?
But it makes sense because that's how evil are. They'll try to cover up what they're doing with humanitarian
work. Any questions? Have you heard the story of the start of the Nobel Prizes? Like, do you know the history of Alfred Nobel? So
no.
Luckily the Nobel Peace Prize YouTube channel has it for us, right? So they can explain this nonsense. Right, so we'll let this little animation play.
How did the inventor of dynamite end up creating the Nobel Peace Prize? The answer may be a bit more complicated than you think. Alfred Nobel was born in Sweden in 1833. He learned at an early age that poverty and sickness could strike at any time. His father, Emanuel, went bankrupt twice in his lifetime. His mother, Henriette, gave birth to 8 children, but only 4 of them made it past childhood. At the age of 9, his family moved to Russia, where he spent most of his childhood. Alfred Nobel lived in a time of optimism and progress, with great advances in the fields of medicine and technology. But at the same time, wars and instability were commonplace. In his late teens, he went to France and the United States to study chemistry. He became interested in the potential of nitroglycerin, a highly explosive liquid. It took several years of experimenting before Alfred Nobel found how to transform the dangerous liquid into a malleable paste, making it easier to handle and safer to use. He named his invention dynamite. Dynamite was a revolution for the construction industry. Alfred Nobel was constantly working. He opened more than 100 factories in 20 countries, and by the end of his life, he held 355 patents in his name. He never married and had no children, so he could think differently when the time came to write his testament and decide what would happen to his fortune after his death. Maybe his money could support scientists, poets, and peacemakers. Alfred Nobel died in Italy in 1896. In his last will and testament, he wrote that most of his fortune was to be used to give out 4 prizes in Sweden in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and 1 in Norway, the Peace Prize. It has often been assumed that Alfred Nobel created the Peace Prize out of regret. But like many others in his time, he believed that scientists were not responsible for how their findings were used. His interest for peace came mostly from his friendship with Bertha von Suttner, an Austrian pacifist. Her novel Lay Down Your Arms was a huge success at the time. Contrary to Nobel, she believed strongly that the only way to peace was disarmament. The two friends would discuss, disagree, and challenge each other's views. And when Alfred Nobel eventually outlined the criteria for his Peace Prize, there was little doubt who had inspired him. Alfred Nobel's testament was the starting point for the Nobel Peace Prize. Since his death, the definition of peace itself has changed. Still, he had something in common with the Nobel laureates who came after him: curiosity, creativity, and the drive to be useful to others.
So, just a little history lesson for people. Dude was literally called the Merchant of Death, right? So, but, yeah, so meanwhile, they're talking about this lady and her wanting to give resources to the U.S. Well, I haven't heard anyone talk about this. So Dave DeCamp over at antiwar.com, right, writes Maduro offered the U.S. access to Venezuela's oil and mineral resources to avoid war. The government of Venezuela, President Maduro, has offered the U.S. access to Venezuela's oil, minerals, and other natural resources as part of a potential deal to avoid conflict. The report said talks on the potential deal went on for months, despite the U.S. increasing military pressure on Venezuela and bombing boats in the Caribbean, but they have ceased since President Trump recently ordered his special envoy, Rick Grenell, to halt diplomatic efforts with the Venezuelan government. This is, again, October 12th, right? So Maduro's government has also continued accepting deportation flights despite the military tensions. According to ICE Flight Monitor, a group that tracks deportation flights, since February, the U.S. has deported more than 10,000 Venezuelans on 58 flights, including 9 that landed since the U.S. bombed its first alleged drug-running boat in the Caribbean on September 2nd. An official familiar with the issue told the Wall Street Journal last week that Venezuela remained one of the best relationships the U.S. has had on deportations. The Trump administration has permitted some trade with Venezuela by reinstating Chevron's license to pump oil in the country in July, but U.S. officials seem determined to escalate. Multiple media reports have said the U.S. is now considering launching direct airstrikes on Venezuelan territory and that the real U.S. goal is regime change, though it's being dressed up as a counter-narcotics operation. U.S. officials have claimed Maduro is the leader of a cartel, allegations that have been strongly denied by the government. Venezuelan officials have pointed to data that shows the majority of the cocaine that is produced in Colombia doesn't go through Venezuela. President Trump has framed the military campaign in the region as a response to overdose deaths in the U.S. due to fentanyl. But fentanyl isn't produced in Venezuela, and it does not go through the country on its way to the U.S. But this is October 14th, so yesterday, U.S. bombs another boat off the coast of Venezuela. Trump's claimed 6 narco-terrorists killed. The strike marks at least the 5th boat the U.S. has bombed in the region. So, yep. The admin has not presented any evidence to Congress to back up its allegations that the boat it's been bombing were carrying drugs. Yet no proof has been put out. So they're just practically pure propaganda. So, but thoughts, Care Bear?
As you said, it's just funny now how the Nobel Peace Prize is going to warhawks.
Yeah. Yep. In the same vein, Vanessa Beeley, Palestine is only one issue, said Trump supporters. He is the president of peace, said Trump supporters. Trump didn't start any wars, said Trump supporters, right? As Trump calls off diplomatic outreach to Venezuela, right? So Fee replies, it wasn't just Trump supporters, but much of the mainstream alternative media, even now calling Trump a victim of Netanyahu rather than somebody that is part of the establishment and is sold out not to just Israel, but the entire Zionist supremacist global elite agenda. Couldn't have put it better myself. So, Jose Luis Grandos Ceja, Trump has authorized lethal operations by the CIA inside Venezuela. We're truly on the precipice of a worst-case scenario that could see the U.S. potentially try to assassinate a sitting president in Latin America. We need a regional response more than ever. So, yep, straight up Cold War assassination nonsense. So, any questions? Any additional statements? No? Cool. Yep.
Well, the idea that Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize is not that far-fetched, considering
who they gave it to. Like, it's practically the same shit, just a fucking toady. That's a good word. People should know that word. Toady. Toady is a great word. But talking about these things is why YouTube's demonetized us. So you can scan the QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, or, as always, links to donate are in the description below. And if you can't give monetarily, like and subscribe, share this video, send it to people. You never know what might happen. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Are we about to go to war with Venezuela? Let us know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Gabriel, we did it. We did it. That's our show. Mouse FF in chat. Rubio is not Quetzalcoatl. Yeah. That's that lizard god, I think. One of those. But yep. Checking else in chat. Truth freeze. War crime tribunals need to be held. Israel, US, UK. I'm with you, dude. So. But yeah, it's just craziness, man. Anyway, what's coming up next week? Anything?
Nothing new that I know of.
Cool. As always, you can follow our Twitter.
Always check out Twitter at Any News.
Yep. And our Substack, links to find stuff are in the description. Should be a little link to find all our links there. But otherwise, keep an eye out for things. We're putting out stuff all the time. Anything else you want to tell people? I think that's just about it. Sunday, How Did We Miss That? Check it out. Me and Indy will be doing stuff, I think. So, I think that's it, Collin. I think that's our show. So,
yeah.
Remember, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone, and please stay safe.
This is a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.